Get ready for Changing Worldviews with Sharon Hughes, the 30-minute show packed with an hour's worth of information, bringing you familiar guests on important issues such as immigration, education, the Middle East, culture, religion, and the changing worldviews of Americans and the world. You've seen her on Fox News, you've read her on the World Wide Web. Now here's Sharon.
For such a time as this.
Freeing the minds of the brainwashed masses.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Changing Worldviews today. In New York, a bill has been proposed by Democrat Assemblywoman Margaret Markey that would require all public school students to undergo mental health exams more than once in order to attend. The bill would amend current law requiring physical health examinations to include the following language. Each such certificate shall also state that a psychological examination was performed and that the child is mentally fit to perform attendance at school. According to one school district in Colorado, a little boy's kiss of his female classmate's cheek violated its sexual harassment policy. 6-year-old Hunter Yelton's mother, Jennifer, says her son was suspended for several days by the school. Now he has a sexual harassment rap on his school record. The district maintains that the little 6-year-old boy's kiss did constitute sexual harassment and is hoping the punishment changes his and other kids' behavior.
This is starting to irritate me.
Some good news. In Mesa, Arizona, a school board has voted unanimously to reinstate prayers at public meetings after voting just 2 months ago to replace the invocations with a moment of silence. The 5-member Mesa School Board agreed without dissent to invite clergy from all religions to participate in a new pre-meeting program. A number of citizens complained that the prayers had been discontinued and urged school officials to stand strong. The new ruling could have a significant impact on city hall and school board prayers nationwide. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Education, and specifically federal education, the Federal Department of Education, and how they want to control the local level, and much more. You don't want to miss today's information. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Sharon Hughes, coming to you from the Wild Wild West, and we mean wild.
Thanks for staying with us. A few years back, I interviewed author Diane Ravish, her book, Language Police. She's an educator with the Hoover Institution, and she wrote an interesting article about what is going on in education today, saying that most educators and even most legislators seem to recognize that No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top have failed to reform American education. After 13 years of test-based evaluation and school closings, no one claims success. But Arne Duncan, President Obama's Secretary of Education, continually, it appears, to look for scapegoats for the failure of both No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top, and continues to blame parents, blame teachers, blame students, blame schools. Told a group of state schools superintendents that he found it, quote, fascinating that some of the opposition to the Common Core state standards, which we've talked about on the show several times, has come from, quote, white suburban moms who all of a sudden their child isn't as brilliant as they thought they were, and their school isn't quite as good as they thought they were. Yeah, he really said that. But he said similar things to that before. According to an article at the Washington Post, in Arne's cheerleading for the controversial Common Core state standards, which were, as we've mentioned before, approved by 45 states and the District of Columbia and are now being implemented across the country, even though some states are reconsidering it, Duncan has reportedly said that the standards and the standardized testing that goes along with them are more difficult than students in most states have confronted, and said that the opposition to the Common Core standards have been fueled by political silliness, quote unquote, and that it's become a rallying cry for fringe groups that claim it is a scheme for the federal government to usurp state and local control of what students learn. Well, is it? Well, let's listen to this Arkansas mother, Karen Lamericks, speaking to her local school board about Common Core. This video has gone viral. Just listen as she cuts through all the rhetoric with the reality of this federal Common Core program. Let's take a listen.
Thank you. You're welcome, Madam Chairman and the board. My name is Karen. I'm a mother of 3 in the Pulaski County Special School District. I am here today not speaking just on behalf of myself. I'm here representing 1,110 other parents, educators, and taxpayers in our state who have some very serious reservations about the Common Core Initiative. We are not alone in this regard. 6 other states have pulled out of their agreement. 22 other states currently have legislation pending to either get out of Common Core or to make significant changes to it. After listening to what was said this morning, I have come to the conclusion that this board is clearly as uninformed as the parents are or were when these standards were adopted. We were told the same thing that you were told, and that Common Core is a set of rigorous, college-ready, internationally benchmarked standards that prepare our kids to compete in a global economy. This is nothing more than an empty sales pitch for corporations and government agencies to profit from our kids and sell them downriver in the name of saving education. I have a math question for you, board members. Are you ready? Get your pencils out. I'm not kidding. Are you smarter than a Common Core 4th grader? Let's find out. The problem is, Mr. Yamada's class has 18 students. If the class counts around by a number and ends with 90, what number did they count by? I'll restate the problem. Mr. Yamada's class has 18 students. If the class counts around by a number and ends with 90, what number did they count by? Does anyone on the board have an answer? 5. And may I ask, madam, how did you come up with that answer? You know why? Because that's what makes sense, right? That's the way we were taught to do it in the 4th grade level. This, however, is what the Common Core standards expect our 4th graders to do. If they solve it in those 2 steps, they get it marked wrong. They are expected to draw 18 circles with 90 hash marks, solving this problem in exactly 108 steps. Board members, this is not rigorous. This is not college ready. This is not preparing our children to compete in a global economy. Skipping rote memorization of multiplication tables is hindering their ability to master long division and fractions later on in the semester. And now our children who were testing in the 80th or higher percentile in math last year are now coming home with C's, D's, and F's on their report cards. Not because, as Arnie Duncan would put it, that white suburban mothers think their children aren't as brilliant as they thought they were, but because I encourage you to listen to us when we send you our emails, despite the comments that were made by our chairperson here today. Our concerns are not based on hysteria or propaganda. They are based on fact, and we are prepared to present those facts. Can you see the trembling in my voice? Parents have not had a voice here, and you need to listen to our concerns. We are moving forward with our legislature to make some very serious changes to this, and all I ask is that you bend your ear and take us seriously. We are college-educated parents. I come to you with 12 years of college education and a former member of the National Honor Society when I tell you this is not working, and it's not what they told you it would be. We will save the privacy concerns and the testing concerns for our legislature, but when it comes to standards, that's your ball court, and we need you to help us with this because this program is dumbing our children down. Thank you.
Well, while U.S. Education Secretary Arne Duncan says that Common Core is not radical and it's not curriculum and that it doesn't call for federal collection of student data, what's the truth? We talked on Wednesday about NSA and data mining. Well, does Common Core allow for data mining our students? Yes. There's a great website by some moms and educators called Common Core Without Representation. Just go to commoncorewithoutrepresentation.com and you can read some good stuff there. But one of their articles entitled 6 Things the U.S. Department of Education has done to deprive your child of privacy is pretty striking. And when we get back from this break, I'm going to tell you about those, some of the examples of just the information, private information they're asking students. That up after this break. Stay with me.
Exposing the worldviews behind the political, cultural, and ideological wars being waged in our nation and world, Sharon packs an hour's worth of information into every half hour with news you can use.
Academia is often the wellspring of race hatred. This is something that we need to recognize. Eugenics, indeed, was a campaign to create a master race by do-gooders and progressives. They were attempting to create a utopia.
What's ending up happening is that Christians who say, I don't care about issues, they realize that's what's being used to silence the gospel. If they can silence the truth, they will silence the gospel.
You're being a watchwoman on the wall, Sharon. I say that with all sincerity. Appreciate what you're doing to sound the alarm, and we need more shows like yours.
Changing Worldviews gets funded entirely through the tax-deductible donations of our supporters. If you've not done so already, renew your active support today. And if you're new to Changing Worldviews, would you consider helping us with a donation, becoming a monthly partner to help get the truth out and tell the world the side of the story that mainstream media doesn't report? Thank you so much ahead of time for supporting our efforts.
It's time for The Legal Edge with Brad Dacus.
AB 1266, the so-called co-ed bathroom bill, requires all public schools to allow self-identified transgender students to access bathrooms, locker rooms, showers, and sports teams of their choice. The co-ed bathroom bill will not go into effect as of January 1st, 2014, while signatures are being counted throughout the state. I'm Brad Dacus.
To find out more, log on at pacificjustice.org.
Thank you for staying with me, ladies and gentlemen. As I mentioned before the break, this website, Common Core Without Representation, has a lot of good information there. And specifically, I just wanted to give you some of the information that they have collected together under the title of 6 Things the U.S. Department of Education Did to Deprive Your Child of Privacy. And specifically, I want to zero in on collecting data or on our children. That's very concerning. And how are they able to do this? Well, self-appointed federal, state, corporate, and even university levels have determined that they have a right and a need for access to personal student data, more than they already had. So, without waiting around for a proper vote, they did it. The CEDS, the Common Education Data Standards, were created by the same people who created Common Core to collect data on the students. Here's just some of what these, quote, 6 sneaky things are. Number 1, we've talked about this before. States were promised stimulus monies to implement Common Core, which included linkable state to federal national database. For instance, Utah accepted $9.6 million to create Utah's SLDS, which is State Longitudinal Database Systems, which is interoperable with the national database. So federal government gives states monies to implement Common Core, gathering data on students that's inappropriate, even unconstitutional. Put that in their, quote, state database, which is interoperable or connected with, linked to a national education database. Number 2, by doing this, it altered the previously privacy protective federal FERPA, which stands for Family Educational Rights Privacy Act law, to make access to personally identifiable student data, including biological and behavioral data, legal. So now, the act of requiring parental consent to share personal identifiable information has been reduced from a requirement to just a, quote, best practice according to this altered federal FERPA regulation. And here's directly from the law. This is what it says in terms of this collectible data and how it can be collected. Quote, biometric record as used in the definition of personally identifiable information means a record of 1 or 2 more measurable biological or behavioral characteristics that can be used for automated recognition of an individual. Examples include fingerprints, retina and iris patterns, voice prints, DNA sequence, facial characteristics, and handwriting, unquote. That's reading from the law itself. So, personally identifiable, shareable information now includes biometric information collected via testing, scanning, or any other means. The Department of Education openly promotes schools collecting data about students' personalities and beliefs in the report called Promoting Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance. This document promotes the use of facial expression cameras, posture analysis seats, wireless skin conductance sensors, and other measures of students' beliefs and emotions. Number 3, the U.S. Department of Education has partnered with private-public partnerships to promote data linking among agencies. So, for example, the Data Quality Campaign, quote, says, as states build and enhance K-12 longitudinal data systems, they continue building linkages to exchange and use information across early childhood, post-secondary, and the workplace, and with other critical agencies such as health, social services, and criminal justice system. So let's digest this. Now they're going to be linking data that they collect from the students at school, along with medical clinics, criminal justice systems, and this will all go into from the state's databases connected to the national databases so that nothing will be kept from any governmental agency, period, about our students. Now, Common Core Without Representation website lists some of the questions that are asked, and some are standard: name, nickname, birthplace, attendance, phone number, bus stop times, etc. But it also asks for religious affiliation, physical characteristics, non-school activity involvement, voting status of parents, and more. So I encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, go to Common Core Without Representation. You can read in great detail about all these things. When we come back from this break, a segment with Professor Alan Quist on the subject of federal education of our students, our kids. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Exposing the worldviews behind the political, cultural, and ideological wars molding the minds of Americans and the world today.
In fact, Hitler wrote fan mail to the associates of Margaret Sanger of Planned Parenthood, who also was a eugenicist and who wished to eliminate the existence of two-thirds of humanity through her methods.
Changing Worldviews encourages listeners to get engaged and help turn the tide. It's everyone's civic responsibility.
Are we going to use this technology and knowledge to help and elevate people, or are we going to use our knowledge and technology to suppress them, to harm them? This is the goal of the eugenics movement and those who have allied movements.
Won't you help continue to stay on this station in your area and reach even more listeners with a financial donation? Go to www.changingworldviews.com donate page and give either a one-time contribution or become a monthly partner. Or send your check to Changing Worldviews, P.O. Box 750624, Petaluma, California 94975-0624. Please make a donation today.
I'd like to invite all of the ladies in the Bay Area to join me at Women in Christ 25th Annual Retreat on February 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Flamingo Resort and Spa Hotel in Santa Rosa, California. And special guest speaker is the wife of Don Piper, the best-selling author of 90 Minutes in Heaven. Eva has appeared on the 700 Club, Fox and Friends, and radio shows across the country, and she's going to share what it was like as the wife of Don Piper, who was in a horrific automobile accident and actually died for 90 minutes and came back to life. What was the recovery of that like, and what happened during those 90 minutes in heaven? The Saturday night conference with guest speaker Jeff McAlpin, who's going to share how his family survived tragedy as well, and Jeannie Pokar, who's an inspirational speaker, is going to be sharing about how to deal with the complexities of life and to get through the challenges of life to live a positive, confident, and exciting life through God. February 7th through 9th. Contact Carol for reservations at 415-883-5863, 415-883-5863. The cost is $149 for the entire weekend, including all meals and materials. And if you also want to spend the night at the hotel, make reservations with the hotel independently at a special rate of $109 per night. Again, contact Carol, 415-883-5865 for more information and details. It's going to be a great time. Hope to see you there. Well, thanks for staying with me. Okay, my interview with Professor Quist on the issue of federalizing public education. Here it is. Alan Quist served 3 terms in the Minnesota House of Representatives, where he was chair of the Social Services Subcommittee and sat on the House Education Committee. He was chief author of numerous bills, and he also played an influential role in legalizing homeschools in Minnesota. He went on to be the Republican-endorsed candidate for governor and was one of 7 delegates elected from Minnesota to the White House Conference on Families, and currently is professor of political science at Bethany Lutheran College in Mankato, Minnesota. Professor Quist is a widely recognized writer and author of the popular book FedEd, the Federal Curriculum and How It's Being Enforced. He and his wife Julie have 10 children. Welcome, Professor Quist, to Changing Worldviews. It's good to have you on the show again.
Well, Sharon, it's a delight for me to be back on. Thank you so much.
I want to cover as much as we possibly can in our short time together so that we can really understand what's going on and where this is headed.
Let me describe it in terms of the national standard, and let me describe it in terms of American history. The traditional approach to American history is to describe the immigration, the settlement, certainly some of the conflicts, but the growth, the writing of the Declaration, the writing of the Constitution, and the like, the establishment of basic principles that created a unified system of government into which people could come. You had a melting pot. You had the development of a uniform American culture. Mm-hmm. That ends up in what a lot of us call American exceptionalism. I mean, we are the world's only superpower for a reason. It's the principles upon which our country was based. The multicultural definition of America is to deny the existence of a central, unified system of principles and people and culture and exceptionalism, but instead to see America as being simply a conflict of different cultures. And so the national standards, for instance, in history, are built around the theme that American history is the collision of cultures. And the collision of cultures are the different peoples, European, African, Hispanic, and Indian. Mm-hmm. And it's all cultural conflict and give and take and the like. And so that's the theme. And in the California standards, there is so much emphasis on diversity, differing perspectives. Everybody has a different perspective. There's no truth really is where this goes. That this follows the national standard theme of it's just a collision of cultures and there is no unified America, the radical view.
So then the next thing is the process-based versus knowledge-based, which in my understanding, bottom line says that they're giving information to students and asking them to analyze or to accept without having knowledge where they can have a clear choice of whether they want to believe it or not. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. If we ask the question, how do you teach students to be able to think critically, for instance? People who believe in academic education and a knowledge-based education will say that, well, students can think critically when they have a lot of information upon which to base their judgment. It's like a jury in a trial. Let both sides lay all their information on the table, and the jury can think critically and evaluate critically when it has all the information. Mm-hmm. But the radicals don't believe in giving students much information. And for instance, in the California 8th grade social studies standards, there are 12 different statements that are standards. And of the 12, 2 use the word understand, which would be knowledge-based. The other 10 are all analyze. Students analyze the political principles in the Constitution. Students analyze the aspiration and ideals of the people of the new nation. Students analyze foreign policy. Students analyze the divergent paths of the American people. That's diversity. And so it should be the other way around. You should have about 80% students understand or know or something like that, and then you can analyze once that information is there.
Okay, as an example, in science classes, give them the information about evolution, give them the information about creation, give them all the knowledge of what both sides are saying as objectively as you possibly can, and then let the students analyze that. It's a belief and a trust that truth will stand up under any investigation, but when you're only getting one side, and it's not the truth side, you don't want the truth to come in because, whoops, guess what? They're not going to believe what you have to say. Well, before we close here, I would just like to give you an opportunity to share anything that you think the audience needs to know that we haven't talked about and what we can do about this.
Well, let me start with what we can do. People need to recognize that what the kids in the schools are going to be taught are now contained in the state standards. I mean, the state standards are just about everything. And they're going to drive the tests, they're going to drive the textbooks, they're going to drive what teachers teach. And so the time has come to look very carefully at what these standards say. And I highly recommend that people get some of our materials. The classic book, Fed Ed, is available at our website because it'll help people analyze, evaluate, because they'll have information, analyze what they're reading. Every state has to look at the standards, and I don't know of any state that doesn't need to make major revisions in their state standards.
Thank you again, Professor Quist, and we wish you well, and we're going to have information about your book on our site as well.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's it for today's show, but now let's close out with some history just for the record.
Article the 1st. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Article the 2nd. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Article the 6th. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people.
This is part of the CD package of Great American Documents. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for today's show. I want to encourage you, if you want to hear more, go to our website, changingworldviews.com, and click on the big mic there. That'll take you to our broadcast archives. Often our shows continue on longer than the broadcast edition, and so you'll be able to hear more. And most importantly, I want to remind you to rise up, take your stand, and remember, our battle is not against flesh and blood. This is a spiritual battle, and we win it with the power of the truth. So until I see you next time, this is Sharon Hughes saying it like it is.
Thanks for listening to Changing Worldviews with Sharon Hughes. You can get more information on today's topic or order a CD of today's show by visiting changingworldviews.com or writing us at Changing Worldviews, P.O. Box 750624, Petaluma, California, 94975-0624. You can also contact us at talk@changingworldviews.com. That's talk@changingworldviews.com. Our program is listener-supported, and we appreciate your tax-deductible donations to help us get the truth out on the important issues Sharon addresses on the show. So until next time, remember, stay alert, stay informed. We live in a changing world.